Hello, wonderful people. I believe that it's 12:59 here in Switzerland, which is 11:59 in the UK. Um, Obviously, according to Swiss standards, right? This is how we run things. We start early rather than late. But out of cultural sensitivity, I'll wait for about a minute to make sure that everybody gets here and everybody gets settled in. If you need to go to the toilet, run, right? Get yourself a drink, maybe get yourself a notepad, could be very good because you might want to take some notes about the stuff that we'll be talking about. My slides aren't very wordy. I think they'll be made available, but they aren't very wordy. So if you want to write anything down, then you're gonna have to do that yourself. Take those notes yourself. I'm gonna continue chatting with you. It's a bit of a one-way chat, considering that I can't see any of you. I'm just hoping that you're all there, talking into the void a little bit. But it'd be lovely if you guys can say in the chat, can share in the chat if you're here, maybe where you're from, anything else that you want to share. It would be lovely to have a sense that I'm not on my own here, actually talking into the void. I'd appreciate it if you can do that for me. Oh, lovely, you're all coming in here. Lovely, hello, lovely, wonderful ladies. Okay, all London-based, loving it. All right. So background, a little bit of background. I'm not English, as you can hear, right? I'm Dutch originally. Married a Brit, hence the last name. I usually say weird last name, but out of respect for you guys, I won't say that. But yeah, I'm Dutch originally and based here in Switzerland. We were just talking about it, me and the lovely Leona from We Are the City. I'm based just outside Lake Zurich, just for those that know it. Literally, if I can look outside the window now, I have a view of Lake Zurich. We're very lucky that lockdown has found us in a place that is really quite wonderful, at least in terms of view. Anyway, it is time, people. Oh, yes, it is time. And I am, somewhat Swiss now, so we do start on time. Anyway, with all of that said, welcome everyone. Welcome to this session today on safeguarding your career in times of Corona. I hope people got the book reference there to Gabriel Garcia Marquez's book. I seem to be the only one. Anyway, I am here with the lovely people of We Are the City. I'm very honored that the wonderful Vanessa has invited me. I met her last year at an event that we did at the Telegraph, and that was wonderful. And so it's a genuine honor to be here now with the good people of her network. It's truly a joy to do this. Making your career Corona-proof, so to say, is important, especially now. And what I found actually over the last couple of weeks, right, as we hit Corona, as we hit lockdown times, was that a lot of people around me were completely freaking out about this, right? Not just in terms of the health of themselves and their loved ones, but also very much in terms of their careers, like what is happening. Obviously, people were also let go or furloughed, and so there's a lot that's happening, right? And there was kind of this mass hysteria around it, and so my response was a very different one based on my experience so far. And as because of that, right, I found it to be especially helpful to run them and now you guys through a number of these limiting beliefs that I have found people kind of to be in, that kept them, afraid, caused them stress, held them back, basically. So that's what I want to do with you today. I want to run you through that. Those limiting beliefs, right, and reverse them so that you can really sort of empower yourself to make the most of this present situation. We'll also have a few short exercises to help you get started on that road to success. Now, a couple of things to note. I'm terrible with tech, so it's going to be interesting to see how we do. We will have question time at the end of this session, which I hope I will finish somewhat on time. I think those were the official things that we need to talk about. Let's hit the road, people. Oh yeah, why should you listen to me? Good question. So just as a bit of background, that is a very large photo of me, I've just realized. So my background is that I used to be a lawyer. I was a lawyer in the best law firm in my country, and I did that because I thought I was going to change the world. And what I did ended up doing was pushing around a lot of paper and not really making a dent in the universe. So I was enjoying it for the kind of intellectual stimulation, but other than that, kind of got boring. I then did a 180-degree change. Basically, I moved continents. I moved to Hong Kong. I was in Asia, and I set up HR for a billion-dollar company there for all of Asia, which was a ton of fun, traveling, seeing the world. And one of the things that happened during that time in Asia was that I gave negotiation classes around the world, right? Whenever I had a meeting anywhere, I would run a session on negotiation because that was the one thing that I felt, that I was good at. And so I would share that. And what happened was that whether I was in Vietnam or Shanghai or Hong Kong or Stockholm, London or Boston, anywhere, I would have the same thing. After every session, I would have a little circle of women around me, right? And they would all tell me the same thing. This is so important, and I suck at it, right? These consistent message. And so I realized that this is an issue across the world, right? Across the globe. And so I wanted to do something about it. And so when we moved here to Switzerland, I continued my work as a lawyer, then got somewhat bored with it. And decided to start Women in Negotiation, my business through which I coach women in their career and salary negotiations, and we're having a ton of fun and we're getting great results. The average salary increase that my clients get is 49.1%. Just putting that out there for all of you currently stuck in kind of the fear mindset. It is still totally possible to get fantastic results, whatever is happening outside of us. So Women in Negotiation. Now, another reason why I started that wasn't just that I felt it was needed around the world. I also have those two little chickens that you can see at the bottom, my two daughters. And if you followed the World Economic Forum's predictions that the gender pay gap won't close for another 217 years, you will realize with me that we'll be dead by then, and so will our daughters. And so that is too late. And so I decided to do something about it, which is why I do the work that I do. So happy to share some of that with you, lovely ladies, today. We'll get going straight away because we have a lot to get through. All right. I am trying. I'm not sure if Leona is doing the changing of the slides. It seems to be happening. Anyway, so the first limiting belief I want you to run through with you is this idea that what is currently happening, right, is an absolute and utter freaking disaster. That what is currently happening is terrible for our careers. It's setting us back. If you're currently job hunting, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm now competing with the rest of the world. If you're currently in a job, you might be worried about being furloughed or totally let go, or this may have already happened, right? And so it's very easy to get sucked into the fear right now. I get it, girl. Like, I get it. I get that that is happening, and it is very unhelpful, obviously. And it's not just unhelpful. I was totally surprised when this happened, when people around me were getting so fearful, so scared, right? And the reason why I was so surprised about this was that I see this whole thing as one massive other opportunity. And I really, really mean that. And this is what we work on with my clients. It is an opportunity, right? So what's basically happening right now, right? You could view the current pandemic as like an earthquake and kind of the earth moving, right? You have these tectonic plates of the earth. I hope you guys are with me with this analogy, right? And tectonic plates, right, after an earthquake or some other major event, right, they start to shift and they never quite settle back to where they were before. Are you with me? Right? Meaning that when something of the size of what is currently happening with the pandemic, right, is happening, it will mean that businesses will kind of lean back and go, oh, okay, what is going on, right? What is currently happening? And they will make new plans. They will adjust their business plans. They will reassess what is working, what isn't working, and then they'll adjust their ways of working, right? And so with that, all these opportunities are created, right? And these opportunities are like the gaps that are created when those tectonic plates, right? They resettle, but they never reset in the exact same way that they started off with. So this, creates these gaps of, where they have needs in terms of their skill set, right? And this could be where you jump in, where you say, hey, very good at this particular thing that you want to get going on, this particular thing that you want to pivot to, right? And so what we see is that, another way of saying it, in the word emergency, right, is the word to emerge, right? So from an emergency, new things come forth. And so I'd like you to kind of lean into that idea that when you are able to align with what is needed, right? There we go. You can help these companies, right, adjust to that new reality, and you can be the one that they want. Another way of looking at it, and you might have experience with this, is that things that are stagnant stay stagnant, right? You may have had ideas to change your company in new ways. You might have ideas that you shared with your boss where you wanted to, improve things or procedures or ways of working or whatever it is, right? And there's no interest because things are chugging along, things are going, right? There wasn't enough of an impetus, enough of a kick up the bum to actually make these changes. And this is what the current crisis is. It's a massive kick up the bum, right? A collective kick up the bum of like, what is working, what isn't. And so I'd love for you to view what is currently happening in that light, because then you'll be a lot more proactive in kind of taking charge and leveraging the opportunity that is there. Now, how to do that, let's go and talk about that a little bit, because when a crisis hits, right, emergency hits, you have two responses, fight or flight, right? A lot of people go into kind of flight mode, which I would equate with sitting down, just sitting behind your computer, doing all the work, pretending that nothing is happening. As long as you do all the good work, you do what you're supposed to be doing, then everything will be fine, right? This is kind of a natural response. Let's just ignore all the stuff going on. Let me just do my thing, and then nobody's going to notice me and nothing's going to change, right? Understandable, not helpful, right? What you need to do is actually address it. So I want you to use this opportunity. And the way to do that is to have what I call a meaningful career conversation with your boss. That is not about you and about your fears and your concerns and your worries. It is about that opportunity, what the company can do, right? How can you best serve the company? How can you best serve your boss in making the changes that they need to make in bringing the company or the team closer to that new reality that we're all going to face, right? That we're all kind of working towards, whether we like it or not. So don't hide, right? But actually go and speak with people, proactively invite them for meetings, online meetings, social distancing people, but proactively invite them for meetings and have that conversation, right? Really, really discuss it with them. And what I also want you to do, if you're currently in a job, right, that's the situation we've just been talking about, is I want you to start building alternatives for yourself, just in case it isn't working out with your current company, either because you now have bigger dreams, right, and you're just not finding a place in your current company, or because you are being furloughed, or this may happen now or in the future. You want to build alternatives. If you're coming from a place of strength, because you will be fine, because if this doesn't work out, something else will, right? You'll have a very different conversation than if you're going, please don't let me go, please don't let me go, please don't let me go. You're with me, right? You get it. Okay, so I want you to start working on those alternatives. And that is actually talking, about looking for a job right now. The other approach that I now see is women that are looking for a job that start applying for jobs. I call it the scattergun approach, right? Kind of applying for as many things. What is it? Throwing spaghetti at the wall and then hoping something sticks, right? Applying for a ton of different roles, hoping that they'll hit something, right? That something will work out of those things. doesn't work. I have a lot of experience with this from my clients and what I've done before. It never freaking works. You might get lucky and something will stick, but it will never be your dream job, which is that opportunity that I was talking about, right? This is the time for you as well to pivot. So what I'd like you to do when you're currently looking for a job, and if you have a job, but you're working on building your alternatives, right, is that you really connect with people. You really connect with people, again, meaningful conversations with people that are working in industries or companies that you are interested in working at. So right now, let me tell you, it is an opportunity because people have time, funnily enough. Yes, I know we're all busy and we have kids running around in the background and all of those things, but here's the thing. People are currently saving massive amounts of time on their commute. That isn't happening, right? From the kitchen to their office, not a lot of time. People are craving connection. So if you reach out to those LinkedIn contacts that are working in industries or in companies or even in teams or doing jobs that you might be interested in, that you think you could really, thrive in, right? Invite them in, send them a LinkedIn message. Hey, so interested in what you're doing. Would you have 20 minutes to speak with me, right? And I'll buy you coffee. As in, you'll get your own individual respective coffees, right? But you'll have it together. And what I find is that there's so many people right now, my clients are getting massive success with this. And I think it always works, but I think it works especially in these times because of that connection that people want and that kind of time that people have, right? They're a lot more flexible in their days. So I want you to do that in order to really leverage the opportunity that this current pandemic provides us with. So that's the first one. Limiting belief, number one. Limiting belief, number two, my friends, let me continue. This one is one that's held a lot of women back over time. So it's this idea that if I work hard, right, I sit behind my computer and I do all my work, right, as we were talking about earlier, they'll give me the job. They'll give me not just the job, they'll give me the salary, right? A lot of you tell me in the chat if you've been in a situation where you started in a job, you knew you were underpaid or you would be underpaid, or you kind of had a sense that you would be, but you thought, I'm going to go in, I'm going to prove myself, and then they'll pay me properly, right? And then they'll give me the opportunities that I deserve. Recognize what I'm talking about? A lot of my clients do, right? And then the next question, of course, is for how many of you has that worked? And usually it stays awfully quiet. It doesn't work, right? Like that. There is still this belief that women need to prove themselves first. Men are promoted based on potential. Women are promoted based on performance, right? So prove yourself first, perform first, and then we'll give you money. But then never that conversation never quite happens, right? Okay, I think you know what I'm talking about. And so if that's just the case for you, right, if you recognize this, you're not the only one, please understand that. We as women don't negotiate for ourselves. There is this study done by Professor Babcock and Leshiever of Carnegie Mellon MBA, who asked their graduates, right, MBA school, biz school, if they negotiated for the offer, or if they negotiated the offer that they were made after B school, right? So business school, women thriving, the height of their careers, only 7% of them did. Only 7% of these confident kick-ass women negotiated their salaries, right? So you're not the only one. This is a problem. And as I said, I have seen it across the globe, right? Women coming to me and telling me, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So it isn't just you, is what I'd like you to take away from this. Another problem is that we expect to be paid less for the exact same work as the boys do. And that we think we are equally capable of, right? This is another study. We expect to be paid between 3 and 32% less, exact same work. We think we'll do just as great as the guys do. We just don't expect to be paid as much, right? And as you can imagine, if you're not aiming high, you're not going to get great results, right? So this is a problem for a lot of women. And the reason I'd like to explain to you why this is the case, right? I'd like you to not take away from this as like, oh God, another thing I suck at, right? This isn't your fault. my friend. This isn't your fault. We do not negotiate because when we are born, our parents place very different expectations on us. They did this other study where they asked the parents of newborn children to describe their offspring, right? Newborn children, hours old. I'm just gonna explain. The only difference between our old children is the color of their little hat, right? It's either pinky or it's blue. For the rest, there's no discernible difference. Would you agree with me? However, when parents are asked to describe their kids, they get very different responses. So they call their boys more coordinated, alert, and stronger than the girls. The girls are described, newborn girls are described as more fragile and needier. Let that sink in, right? This is for kids that there's no discernible difference between them, but we already have these expectations for them. And so it makes sense that parents continue to be more protective of girls, right? Teaching them to be good and compliant. And, as girls, we learn to communicate, to connect with others. And we are just really uncomfortable asserting ourselves, right? And we're really uncomfortable with disagreements. I always talk about my youngest daughter, Izzy, who about a year ago, I think, had a play date with her friends. They were playing family first and foremost, and then there was some kind of fight broke out. There was some kind of issue that they were struggling with, and then they stopped the play, right? That's their response. They're so uncomfortable fighting that they'd rather just not play at all, right? Whereas my brother, who has 3 boys, bless his heart, very different experience, right? When boys play, they are constantly, it's all about being independent and taking risks and being assertive and competition, right? My dad drives a better car than you do. I can run faster. I can kick the ball further, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so it is no wonder that we grow up with certain attitudes and certain ideas about how cool it is or uncool it is, right, to assert themselves. And then on top of that, of course, society treats us differently. There's ample research to show that if we use the same assertive kind of language as boys do to ask for what we want, right, and need, that we get a very different response based on our gender, right? As a woman, when you ask for a raise and these things, right, or you ask for promotion, you get called what? The B word, right? You're strong, you're too aggressive, right? In a boy, it would be assertive, for you would be aggressive, etc., etc. So no freaking wonder that we are holding back when it comes to this. But I would like to tell you that it's not necessary to do that. It is not necessary to hold back. You do need to start the conversation, because people won't do it for you, right? Your boss won't do it for you because they are busy. It's nothing personal. It's not that they don't think maybe that you deserve it. It's not that they don't want you to have it. It is they're busy. They are keeping 100 plates in the air at all times, right? And so it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. So make sure that you are the squeaky wheel, meaning you start a conversation, you proactively, right, invite them to have the conversation. Here's another reason. On the surface, it makes no business sense for your boss to proactively start a conversation with you about giving you more money, right? And I'm saying on the surface, well, I guess this makes sense, right? Everybody gets this. Obviously, companies are all about saving costs and cutting costs and all of that, right? So proactively giving you more money seems to be senseless. However, I've literally in December, I think, done a TEDx talk about this, how in real life, it's actually a prudent financial choice for companies to give their women more money, even when they're not asking for it proactively. The reason why is that it costs the company, just gonna write these numbers down, guys, this is important. It costs the company between 100 and 200% of your annual salary to replace you. I'm just going to repeat that. It costs the company between 100 and 200% of your annual salary to replace you. And that is, nobody ever talks about this because it's all these hidden costs, right? Nothing has ever been added up. So it sits in recruitment, obviously, is very expensive. Onboarding, training people, lost downtime, right, in between finding the new you. lost network, lost, understanding how policies work, how companies work, etc., etc. So it is incredibly expensive to lose you. And so that is what's happening. Companies do lose great women because they don't negotiate. They don't dare to negotiate, or their bosses don't proactively do that with them. And so these women think either they're going to stay at home, right? They just go home, or they go to the competitor. So it's much more expensive for a company to lose you than to give you a salary increase. But most of them don't realize that. So you are going to have to, raise your hand and say, pick me. This is what I need to do. Okay, so don't let that stop you. Here's another limiting belief that I always fight against. People thinking, it's no big deal. It's no problem. I mean, it'd be nice to earn more money, right? It'd be nice to get that bigger job, but really, ultimately, who freaking cares, right? It's a new pair of shoes, or it's a new, I don't know, I'm a shoe and bag person, whatever your thing is, right? But it's like a new pair of shoes every month, but who cares? It's a couple $100, no biggie. Yeah, it's a biggie. It's a real biggie. Listen to me here. So the impact of not negotiating in our careers is massive, and it hits a couple of different points. So first and foremost, importantly, if we do not negotiate, this has a negative effect on our health. This is a surprising factor for quite a few people, but it has been shown time and time again that if we don't negotiate for ourselves, that this that we suffer from a number of negative, or that has a number of negative consequences for our health. So the first one is that, what we know is that across the world, men and women do a very different proportion of the work at home, right? This is no news to you. So across the world, literally across the world, it's the same kind of diversion or division. Women do 2/3 of the homework plus all the emotional workload, and men do 1/3, right? The emotional workload is making sure that the kids have shoes that actually fit them, and that grandma gets a birthday present sent to her, and that doctor's appointments are being made, and those kind of things, right? So we have this running to-do list that's at least 100 items long on top of our full-time careers. And so they did this fun study where they checked the stress hormone levels of men and women at 5 p.m. As you can imagine, I'm not going to ask in the chat because I can't see it right now, but the stress levels of men at 5 p.m. went down, right? They had done a hard day's work, they were going home, they were going to relax. It was very different for the women, as you can imagine, right? They jacked straight up. Stress went straight up because at 5 p.m. they were gearing up to go home for their second shift, right? There was more work to do at home. And so prolonged exposure to stress has a massive negative effect on women's health. It adds to heart disease, which is the #1 killer of women. It adds to depression, arthritis, diabetes, insomnia, a host of other things that have a massive negative impact on our health. So I'd like you to consider, if you're not negotiating both at home, right, at the kitchen table with your partner, and at work with your boss, so that you can set up your work in a way that works not just for you, right, but also for the company, that you can basically be your best self in both of those places, you will suffer, right, in this respect. Another important thing to remember is that obviously as a professional in the workforce, if you're not raising your hand and saying, pick me, I am ready, right, for different projects or whatever it is, you will simply get less respect. And unfortunately, even if you ask for less money, right, or if you don't ask for more money, you'll receive less respect. And the reason for that is simply that basically your boss doesn't have time, right? I always say to my clients, people are stupid, our brains take shortcuts. So what I'm saying is this: your boss doesn't think, oh, she is not asking, if you're earning less than your coworker, let's call him Bob, right? Your generic male coworker that does less good work than you do but earns more. We all know the one, right? So Bob, if you're earning less than Bob for officially the same work that you do, right? Your boss doesn't think, oh, but she's wonderful. She's just been socialized not to ask for herself. And that is the reason that she hasn't negotiated, but her work is fantastic. And so, it's fine, right? Your boss simply sees the difference, right, in pay and goes, huh, he's earning more. That must be because his work is better. Right? So if you're not proactively negotiating your work or your salary, then that is also, it has a detrimental effect on the way that people see you, because people are stupid and our brains take shortcuts, right? So that's something to think about as well. And here's the biggie that we don't talk about enough, right? I said earlier, oh, it's a pair of shoes a month, right? It's a lot more, and that is due to the impressive and hardcore effect that compound interest has on our work. I think it was Einstein who called compound interest, what was it? Mathematical explosion, I think he called it. Let me run you through an example of how it works, right? What an impact being a negotiator or not being a negotiator has on your life. So here's a case study from Bella and Bob, named after a pet fish. Bob is a name we always use for that generic male white colleague. So let's imagine, right, that they're both, I think we said here that they're both 30 years old, and they're both offered the same role in the same company. Same role, same company, and they're offered 100K. Right? That's the offer that's being made. Bella accepts this because she's not used to negotiating for herself. She's like, fantastic offer. Yes, I'll take that. Thank you very much. Bob, of course, he knows. Dirty little HR secret, people. You can always get 5% more. Okay? Write that down. You can always get 5% more. We expect you to negotiate. So Bob asks for and gets 5% more, right? It's easy for him because he's been encouraged from a young age to do that, to stand up for himself, to be assertive. But he does it and he gets that, right? So let me run you through the numbers. So let's imagine that they work in the same place for 30 years, right? They get a 4% annual increase. I mean, I've just plucked those numbers out of thin air, right? It's kind of the average, whatever. Every year they get 4% more. They never change jobs, right? So they just continue there. You see at the bottom, the lifetime earnings for both of them, difference, almost 300K for a 5-minute conversation, right? 300K, it's serious money. I mean, what would you do with 300K? Send your kids to uni? I don't know, buy a nice house in the south of France. I don't know. I've got ideas, but it's what you're gonna do. I repeat, for a 5-minute conversation, right? Okay. Very unrealistic scenario, as you'll agree with me. Who the hell these days works for the same company for 30 years, right? Nobody. So let me run you through a second example, right? A case study where this is consistent negotiating, right? So the difference between being a negotiator and somebody who's like, no, I'll take whatever you give to me, right? I'll just accept what you give to me. So we start at the same number again, 100K. Bella accepts this, right? Bob obviously negotiates, but now they change jobs every 5 years, right? Slightly more realistic. They change jobs every 5 years. And then Bella gets offered 5% more than her last salary. And Bob starts to negotiate, right? So maybe 5% is what he starts with, but then he starts getting 10% and maybe towards the end of his career, even more than that, which people tell me is a very realistic scenario. The older you get, the bigger the increases basically are. He's getting better at it, right? He's getting into it, like this is a thing now. So this is the difference, right? Bob negotiates every time, as I just mentioned. Let me run you through the numbers now. This is where it gets funky, people. Look at this. Excel for the win, all right? At the bottom, you'll see what the totals are. Now, the difference between Bob and Bella is more than 3 million. And what you'll agree with me is that, obviously we can change the numbers, right? You can have a different starting point. We can change this in many different directions. But what you'll agree with me probably is that the second scenario, where they change jobs every now and then, right, is a lot more realistic than the first one, meaning that the difference between being a negotiator and not being a negotiator runs in the millions rather than the hundreds of thousands. Although you'll probably agree with me as well that hundreds of thousands isn't, it's better than a kick in the teeth, as my husband always says, right? So this stuff's serious, guys. It's not, you know, a pair of shoes every month. It gets really quite freaking hardcore. So I just wanted to highlight that before you think, no biggie. I'm just not that kind of person who does that. You better become the kind of person who does this. All right. Then you might say, well, this sounds all well and good, Wies. This is all freaking wonderful, but you don't know me. I'm terrible at negotiating. I'm really, really freaking terrible at it. You've never met me, but I'm really bad at it. So please, I couldn't for the life of me negotiate for myself. And I'm honestly here to tell you that you are great at it. And I'm not saying that, you know, out of kind of group hug, you know, let's all kumbaya, feel better about ourselves. I'm really freaking serious. And you don't even need to take my word for it. All the negotiation experts agree on this, male, female, everybody agrees across the board. Women are better negotiators than men. The science or the research here backs this up as well, because one of the fun things about negotiation theory is that you can research and quantify the heck out of it, right? Sorry, I geek out on that, but you might not be interested as I am, but it's really easy to quantify negotiation success, right? Because you can just work with basically money or numbers, basically. And so every time it turns out that on average, women do better in negotiations than men. Here's the kicker. They do that when they're negotiating on behalf of others, not when they're negotiating on behalf of themselves, right? Negotiating on behalf of themselves is being selfish, not thinking about others, right? So that feels wrong to us, and other people perceive that as wrong of us. Whereas if we're negotiating on behalf of others, our companies, our bosses, our teams, our kids, you know, Tiger Mom, right? We all know what I'm talking about. When you're negotiating on behalf of others, we are awesome, right? So what I'm needing you to do is to kind of reframe this. I'm a great negotiator and I can use that skill for myself. We'll be talking in a minute about how you can do that. And I'd just like to tell you that the reason why you're so good at it, right, and on average better than boys, is precisely because you're a woman. Here's the thing. We talked earlier about how, you know, from the day you're born, right, people have certain expectations on you and they raise you a certain way, right? We have collectively been raised to think about others first, we get really good antenna, right? Even biologically speaking, apparently women have a broader vision. We can see like we have a wider field of vision than guys, who I guess have to zero in on the dinosaur or whatever they were shooting back in caveman days, right? We have a broader vision. Why is that? Because in those caveman days, right, we were at home taking care of the group, taking care of others, and we had to make sure that everybody was fine. So we had to kind of, you know, keep everything and everybody in check. And those traits, right, where we are very focused on others, that is what makes us great negotiators, because as a world, we are collectively moving into the direction of interest-based negotiation. We'll be talking about that in a minute, but basically what it means is that, you know, the days of fist slamming and I'm stronger than you are, you know, that kind of negotiation, those are over, man. Totally passe. What we're now getting towards is a world in which, both in business, politics, you know, everywhere, it's about creating these win-win outcomes, right? What do you need to get a win-win outcome where both sides feel like they've won? You need really good listening. You need really good empathy. You need good antenna, right? Sensing what's important for the other side, sensing what's the environment doing, what can we do here? You need really good collaboration, right? Which is all of the things that we have been raised to be really good at. We've been raised to focus on, right? So it's precisely because you are a woman that you are such a great negotiator. So don't tell me ever that you are not good at this. I'd like you to focus on that. All right. So in order to negotiate for yourself, right, and to really stand up for yourself and to really get results for you, you need to really own that you are worth that you're worth the job, that you can do the job, that you are worth the salary that you're asking for, that you're worth whatever it is that you are basically negotiating for, right? It isn't just good enough to just say certain words, to use different techniques. You've got to really own it, because you're going to get pushback. And if you don't really own it, then, I am worth this, I should be paid this, etc. If you don't really own it, at the merest sign of pushback, you're gonna go, oh, never mind, kidding, and you're gonna basically lean out and you're not gonna do it. So I need you to really own that value that you are worth what you're asking for. So we're going to do a very quick exercise. I'd like all of you to take out a blank piece of paper. Ideally, hard copy. I'm a big fan of hard copy. There's research to back that up. It isn't just my tech tardness that makes me dislike writing things down in Word on the computer. But if you've only got a computer in front of you, that's also fine. But I'm going to ask you to take, let me look at the clock. All right, I'm going to ask you to take 3 minutes to write down 50 reasons why you and what you do, both at home and at work, make you awesome, make you great. Nothing's too big, nothing is too small to write on here. It can be, I always smile at my neighbor and I know I make her day that way. It can be, I'm really great at PowerPoint presentations. It can be, I am really good at making my colleague feel good about herself when she's had some kind of, pushback or something. It can be, I'm a really good friend. I'm a really good listener. It can be anything. It can be big, it can be small, as I said. And I need you to take 3 minutes to start writing these 50. Believe me, I know that 50 is a lot and that you might need a little bit more time than 50, but I want you to kickstart this. And afterwards, let me explain to you in detail why I need this. Okay, I'm going to give you that 3 minutes right now. I'll set my, don't know if you can hear it. There it is. So we're going to finish up for now. If you haven't managed to get to 50, which I totally understand, no problemo, it is my timekeeping and it's kind of the stress of these 45 minutes, right? Then please finish this as soon as you can, finish the list. And then I'd like you to hang that somewhere where you can see it every day, where you can see it all the time. Toilets are a good place, inside of your wardrobe, side of your computer, right? I need you to internalize this stuff. And the reason for that is that, it seems like a completely simplistic exercise, right? This 50 ways. Or 50 reasons why you kick ass. It seems like a really simplistic area. I almost always am a little bit embarrassed to explain it because it's so simplistic. However, this is an incredibly important way of changing something in your brain that has been is defaulting to focusing on the bad. So what I have my clients do actually is that they keep a brag book, as we call it. Controversial title, but you get the concept, right? A brag book is any notebook you can find in which you write down every single day all the things you did well that day, or maybe if you do it in the morning, which is my system, routine. I do it in the morning. I write down obviously from the night before. So it's compliments that I receive by email or text message or stuff from my clients or stuff from other people, right? So from external basically, but it's also things that I knew I did well. And sometimes that, quarantine days, not gonna lie, it is, I didn't yell today at my kids. Like that can be a big win, right? It doesn't have to be woohoo great stuff, but every day I try to aim for about 3 to 5 of these items, right, where I feel I did a great job. And I reread what I've been doing in the past. I've now got 16 brag books here, and they've been literally a game changer in my life. And I notice it as soon as I get out of the habit, right? If I forget it for about 2 or 3 days, I notice it immediately in my mindset. So the reason why this is, and it's all very scientifically, like it's very, I can explain it, is that as human beings, right, we have only evolved and developed because we focus on the bad. We focus on what requires improvement, right? So that's how we ended up from caves into these fancy houses that we have these days with wonderful lighting and all the, all the good things of today's day and age, right? So it served us well, but our brain is still kind of in that mindset of where if something happens, right, we go into fear, we go into scarcity mindset, we go into worry. Like if we in caveman days, it was if we heard a little rustle in the amongst the trees, we're like, is that a tiger or not? And it helped us then, because if it was a tiger and we weren't paying attention, just going la di da di da, everything's well, right, we would be dead. So it made sense then. It doesn't make sense these days anymore. There's not a lot of tigers around, right? That can do that. So, but we still have that we have that mindset, right? Where we're constantly focused on what we're not doing well. So you may have just run a wonderful presentation, right? And then afterwards, all you can think about, do you recognize this? All you can think about is that one question that you couldn't answer perfectly straight away, or how, I don't know, the tech setup was difficult. Slightly personal here. You see what I mean, right? We have this tendency to focus on the bad. But when we do that, right, consistently in our lives and completely diminishing our accomplishments, it's going to be freaking difficult to go to your boss and say, I'm ready for this thing, give me a promotion, or give me the salary raise, or I'm ready for the bigger job, right? When you're applying for a job and they're telling you, you can start at that level, you're going to have to stand up and say, no, I'm ready. But you can't do that if you're always focused on how you need to improve and what you're doing wrong instead of what you're doing right. So with that exercise of every day writing down what you have kicked ass at, what you've been great at, right? We are slowly rewiring your brains, or you are slowly rewiring your brains to focus on the good. Because what your brain starts doing when this becomes a habit, right? It doesn't happen if you do this once a week, right? So like going to gym, you go to gym once a week, no muscles, nothing. You go to the gym every day, there's a change, right? Suddenly you notice it. So it's the same with this. If you form this habit, right, where you start focusing on the good in your life, then your brain starts scanning the whole world every day for the things that you are doing well. And so your entire life becomes about focusing on the good. And then it's much easier communicating that to other people. I hope you're with me on this one. It's truly been life-changing for me. This is like the biggest, if you take away one thing from today, I'd love it to be this. It's an opportunity in the pandemic, and this. That would be great. All right. Let's get going, because I am worried about the time. Limiting belief number 5, and the last one. This is the number one reason why my clients don't negotiate with their bosses. I have this Facebook group, and I asked it, and it was like 85. I did a poll, right? I ran a poll. 85% of the votes went to this reason. What was holding women back from negotiating their worth, right? Was that they were worried that this relationship with their boss that they had so carefully built up, right, would be diminished if they asked for more. Or if they were going for a job, they were afraid that if, asking for a higher salary would be a reason to retract the offer, or it would set their relationship up for failure right from the start, right? So it was really focused on the relationship, which makes sense given our upbringing, right? So I totally understand, but I'm here to tell you that you can actually improve the relationship with your boss through these conversations. And that's simply because relationships become better when both sides get what they want, right? When both sides feel good about discussing something and then coming to an agreement that they are both better off with, such as you showing up and saying, how can I serve you better? And then, on the back of that, right, asking for more money, I will guarantee you that will lead your boss to love more on you, basically. And so what you do is you get that through this open talk, right, this career conversation that I talked about before, where you create outcomes that are good for you and are good for your boss, right? These cliched, but cliched for a reason, win-win outcomes. It's the same with the kind of, conversation sometimes, you might have them with your mom, or you might have them with your best friend. There's usually wine involved, at least in my case, where you have this really good heart-to-heart, right? This really open, honest conversation. And at the end of it, you have just this warm, fuzzy feeling, right? Yeah, it's like you feel better about the relationship, you feel better about the outcomes, you feel just really, really good. That's the kind of conversation you can have with your boss. And I know that you're just going to sit there and go, well, Wies, you don't know my boss. That's not the kind of relationship like it. There's no way. I'm here to tell you. Let me tell you about Yelena. I love this woman so much. She's one of my clients. She came to me to negotiate her return to work after having her first baby. She works in Germany in the heavy industry. I mean, there wasn't a man at her level. And then she had the audacity to get pregnant, right? So she, the entire company was like, this is the end of her. And so she came to me and we worked together to negotiate that return to work. Let me tell you what happened. So we referred to the HR boss that she was the person that she had to negotiate with as scary HR dude. Like that was his name. We all knew him in the program like that because he was scary. He was straight up frightening, right? They had a negotiation. She returned to work to a promoted, like she was promoted, right, on her return. 35% salary increase, and her scary HR dude sent her a message afterwards saying, thank you for these great conversations that we've had. I've really appreciated it, and feel really good about all of this, right? Scary HR dude did this, thanking her for the conversations. 3 months later, he came back to her and said, do you want another promotion? So she was promoted yet again, based on those initial negotiations for her return to work, right? So it's totally possible, also with your scary boss, to create a better relationship through having these meaningful career conversations. If she can do it with him, then you can do it. And here's the other thing. This is something to realize, right? This kind of conversation, that's the one that we're cool with, right? This is the one that we've been brought up to be really good at. This is comfortable and authentic to us. This is who we are. This is how we've been raised. This is what's good for us as well, right? So don't attempt for some kind of hard-knuckled conversation. Simply go for this win-win focus. Now, what you need to do for that kind of negotiation, and I'm wildly aware that we've gone over time, so I'm hoping that you guys can stay for the last bit because we're going to go into how you can do this. I'm only going to get 3 minutes more, I think. Okay. All right. So you need to focus on interest. So a little bit of negotiation jargon. Positions are what you say you want. I want 80K. No, I want 100K, right? For the job, for example. And your boss says, I have 80K to give to you, right? For example, that's their position, your position, their position. What a lot of negotiations have in common when people aren't quite enlightened and don't quite realize the importance of it, right, is that they kind of buckle down on what their position is and they just start yelling that faster. And then you'll probably end up somewhere on the, on that line. So probably around 90 if you're lucky, right? Which is a compromise, which means that neither party got what I wanted because you wanted 100, right? And you only got 90. And they didn't want to give you more than 80, and now they have to give you 10 more, right? So nobody is happy with that outcome. So a compromise is a lose-lose outcome. Now, we'd like you to get to a win-win outcome, and how you get there is by this focusing on interest. Interest are the underlying reasons why do you want what you want. Why is that important to you? And the story that they use here in negotiation circles, right, is the one of the two girls who they're quarreling about an orange, right? They're fighting about this two little, let's just say they're sisters, right? And their mom comes in and goes, what the heck's going on? And then the little sister goes, well, I want the orange, but my big sister is fighting me for it, and she always gets what she wants. And then the older sister screams, well, the little one always gets what she wants, right? And so they fight. What does the mother do? Cuts the orange in half, gives both of the girls one half, right? You're with me on that one. That's the position, right? I want the orange. So no questioning, you get half, that's the compromise. So neither side got what they wanted, which was the whole freaking orange. Now, if the mother instead had asked, why do you want what you want? Maybe, I'm not saying guaranteed, but maybe the older one would have said, well, I need the zest for some muffins I'm making. I'm not a great baker. For muffins that I'm making. And it might be the juice, the orange juice, right, that the little one was looking for. In that case, both sides could get what they want. And it's an incredibly twee example. I just think it illustrates quite well what's going on. But you would be surprised how many 50-year-old white male business owners negotiate at that level. I mean, I've been a lawyer. I've done some pretty freaking big deals. And literally, this is the level that they operate at, right? So the question why something is important to you is really important because there's just more opportunities for success. There's more ways in which you can reach success rather than just compromising and both losing. So how you do that is simply in the preparation stage, right? I need you to think about, why is what you're asking for important to you? Why do you want what you are asking for? Why is it the title or the package? Why is that important for you? You also need to, then during the conversation, need to share that, and you need to really ask the questions of the other side and really listen to what they've got to say about this. And it's incredibly important to get to this level, right? And to have this kind of conversation, because, yeah, as I said earlier, the opportunities for a solution are much greater. So if we're going back to the example of the 80 and 100K, right? It could be that you're saying, well, I want to be paid 100K because I've done my research. And, that's the average that people are making in my job. And if you're paying me 80K only, I feel like completely, like you're not valuing my work, and I just feel really under appreciated, and that makes me incredibly unhappy, right? If that's the case and your boss really doesn't have more than 80K, he could say, you're getting a different title, or I'm going to give you all these stretch projects, or we're going to be working on some really interesting learning opportunities for you, or whatever it is, right? They could give you that kind of honor and respect and value your appreciation, right, in other ways than just the money. If that is what you're truly looking for, why you want 100K, right? It could be that you're saying, well, I actually want to be paid more money because I want to do this study, and that's in line with my work, for example, right? Let's say I want to do an MBA, making this up as I go here. I want to do an MBA and I need 20K for that, right? Then it could be that your boss says, I still don't have the money, right? Not quite in my salary bucket, right? But we have an education bucket, right? And I could give you've been working in a company for 3 years, so every year everybody gets 2K. You've never asked for it, so that's 6K straight up front. If you work with us for another 2 years, I'll give you another 4 grand now, so you get 10K in total, just off the bat, right? Without any negotiation. That's simply just from finding out, how can we accommodate you? How can we give you what is important to you, right? Without really, with making it possible for your boss, right? So you have to share why it's important to you, and you have to get really inquisitive about why the other side says what they're saying, right? So start asking. And that's why I'm going to share this one slide with you that I'm sure all of you know how to do active listening, right? Which is truly deeply listening to the other side. I'm just going to share it here one more time, just so we're all clear on this, because this is a game changer. I have one of the challenges I set for my clients is that I ask them to have this kind of conversation with either their boss or their partner or somebody close to them, and just ask them 3 times in a row, tell me more. And every time, like, their jaw drops. It's like, I got so much information, it was ridiculous. It is asking, right? So start with asking open-ended questions, right? So not questions that can be answered with yes or no, but it's the who, when, how, what, etc., right? Questions. Then truly listen to the answer. Focus truly on the answer. Don't listen with a view to answer, but truly listen to understand, right? Focus really on what you're getting back, not focused on yourself, focus on the other side. And then check in with them. Did I understand you correctly? And I always tell the story, I won't now because we're really over time, but I always tell the story of I negotiated the largest settlement in the history of the Netherlands, my native Netherlands. And the reason was, this was with the perpetrator of the largest fraud case, right, in the Netherlands ever. And he was so good at this. And the main reason why we got to a solution, why we got to that settlement, right, rather than having to resort to going to court, was because we were both extremely focused on understanding the other side. He was as well, and that is the sole reason why that happened. It is incredibly, incredibly important. And if you can do it with perpetrator of a very large fraud case, then you can do it with your boss, I promise you. So active listening, that's where the money's at, people. That's where the real difference is being made. So with that said, and slightly rushed, we are finishing, but not before I want you to commit to yourself. I want you to make a commitment to yourself, because we've just been talking for, what is it, a good hour or so about this important subject, right? This life-changing skill, or this life skill. of negotiating your career. And what I'd like you to do is to kind of take action on this, right? Because listening is one thing, but actually taking action, that's where, again, that's where the value is. So I'd like you to commit to yourself. So find a post-it. That's my ideal scenario, but you could, use any piece of paper. But again, I want you to put it somewhere where you can see it every day. So post-its are good. Where you commit to yourself. I will do what? Right? Have a conversation with my partner, have a conversation with my boss, Skype, Zoom, whatever setup, whatever it is, right? Reach out to 10 connections, whatever it is, with, and then the person, right, that you are meaning to have this conversation with, or this action, so to say, take this action with, and then give yourself a deadline, right? We know that that works just a whole lot better when you have a deadline. So I would like you to write that down for yourself, and again, put that somewhere where you see it every day until it's done. Until it is done. All right. I'm sure that all of you are doing that. And whilst you're doing that, let me share with you briefly, if this is of interest to you, if you have realized, holy crap, this matters. Holy crap, I want to do something about this, right? I want to get some help. I want somebody to hold my hand through this, massively challenging time. Right now, then that's what I do. So reach out on LinkedIn. I'm there. I have a funny name, I do realize, but you can find me there. I'm the only one, obviously. Duh. Find me on LinkedIn, or if you're saying, holy crap, I really do want help. Like I don't just want to have a quick chat, but I really want help with this. Let's figure out if I'm the right person for you. You can sign up for what we call a discovery call with me and my team members. I have wonderful coaches that work with me. Under this wonderful URL. You can find it on different social media of me as well. But if you can copy this, wonderful. And we can jump on the phone for about, 45 minutes? And we'll make a personalized game plan for you, right? So a personalized negotiation game plan for you. It's free of charge. I'm not there to sell anything. My team members don't sell anything. It's only when we feel that we can really help you around whatever blocks are holding you back from massive career success, right? If we feel that we can really help you with that, we may invite you into our program, and we can talk about what that looks like then. But this is really as us serving you, basically, to help you in this challenging period in your career. So if you want to get in touch, these are the ways to do that. And with that, we are back, I think, with our wonderful friends of We Are the City. And if there is time, I've got...